Okay, let's meet a candidate for Attorney General. As you know, Tom Corbett went on to be governor of Pennsylvania, left a vacancy, and Linda Kelly is filling that seat at this present time. In fact, she announced the Sandusky indictment, as you recall, that was begun under the Corbett administration in the Attorney General's office in Pennsylvania. Attorney General Corbett also filed an objection to Obamacare. And anyway, we move on. Linda Kelly is not running for the seat, and so it is up for grabs. The lone Republican in the primary this year is David Freed. He is currently the Cumberland County District Attorney, and as far as I know, the only Republican on the primary ticket. He's on the line with us right now. David, welcome.
Mike, thanks for having me.
Do you know why Linda Kelly is not running for the seat?
Traditionally, when there's a replacement of a governor or an attorney general or somebody of high office, the way that it works in Harrisburg is that the person who's appointed agrees not to run as a condition of their approval by the Senate. And I believe that's what happened with Linda. Linda's doing a great job, but I think she had to agree in order to get appointed not to run.
Okay. So, and this is not a special election. This is a regular election for that seat, is it not?
That's correct. The Attorney General is always elected in a presidential year. So this Governor Corbett, had he not moved on, would have been done anyway after 2 terms.
Oh, you're out after 2 terms, just like the governor. You can serve 2 terms, and that's the end of it.
That is correct.
I like that. I wish more politicians had to face that prospect. But that's a whole other topic for another day. Okay, you got so you're unopposed in the primary, so you automatically will become the Republican nominee in the fall, and you will face either of Patrick Murphy of Bucks County, a former congressman, or Assistant District Attorney Kathleen Kane of Lackawanna County. Come the primary, we'll find out which one of those you're going to face. I gotta, the pressing issues about the Attorney General, really, they're not many. But the Attorney General's office, serious. To the average voter, to the average list, I'm not trying to downplay the position, but I'm just saying, can we agree that generally the Attorney General of Pennsylvania is kind of like, oh, yeah, that's right, that guy, right?
I would agree, and often it's that way, even for a county prosecutor, Mike. If we're doing our job right, people don't think a whole lot about what we do, of course, unless they become a crime victim, and then it becomes of interest. But there are some pressing issues, definitely. Yeah,
and of course, with the Pennsylvania Attorney General, there's 2 that I'm thinking of. One, right now, Pennsylvania was one of the states, and I believe they're one of the states, the 26 states, that have brought this suit against Obamacare to the Supreme Court. Those arguments are being heard right now. Was the state of Pennsylvania correct in doing that, do you think?
Absolutely. Governor Corbett signed on when he was Attorney General. It was the right thing to do. The case was really started by Attorney General Pam Bondi down in Florida. There was also a former county prosecutor in the West Palm Beach area, and she was joined by the AG in Virginia and the AG in South Carolina, among other states. And it was the right thing to do. It was an intrusion of the federal government on our rights. Prosecutors, Mike, we can be simple people sometimes. And I think it just, to Attorney General Bondi and the others, it's just that they couldn't believe that the government could force someone to do something, even under the Commerce Clause, and that's why they started the suit. And we'll see what happens.
But the argument, there's a counter argument to this that, no, I shouldn't say a counter argument, an alternative argument here that a mandate such as the Obamacare has is perfectly fine if it's state imposed. Would you agree with that point of view?
I would leave that decision up to the states, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So Pennsylvania's among the plaintiffs here in this particular case. How do you think that case is going, by the way?
Well, I probably read the same things that you read. I was certainly heartened to see that Paul Clement was doing the argument, who's kind of a rock star in lawyer circles, especially as it relates to the Supreme Court. And one of the interesting things was Clement's fee, which is large, $250,000, but not as much as other people wanted to charge, was split up equally among the states involved. So it's actually, I think each state's paying somewhere around $10,000 to that guy to argue, and he's done numerous Supreme Court arguments. I think yesterday was a good day for him and a tough day for the other side. We'll see what happens today. We all try to play that parlor game of figuring out where the judges are going or the justices are going based on their questions. We won't know till the opinion's written.
Okay, but if you look at, and I was just talking about this in the last hour because we spent a whole hour talking about Obamacare, various issues connected to that. But the justices sounded awfully skeptical. With Justice Scalia's asking, well, does the government have the right to order me to buy broccoli? And Justice Roberts, the Chief Justice, asking, well, does the government then, will they have the right to order me to buy a cell phone in order to call 911 if I need to? Justice Kennedy suggesting that this law would actually change the fundamental relationship between the citizens and the federal government. So it sounded as if they are very skeptical of the constitutionality of that particular clause. But I wanted to ask you this, because we had a guest last hour, Dr. Vliet, Dr. Elizabeth Vliet, who is one of the opponents, one of the critics of Obamacare. And she said one issue that has not been discussed is the issue of the privacy of our medical records, which under Obamacare will be forced to be turned over to the federal government for their perusal and their use. And she said this is a clear violation of a number of clauses of the U.S. Constitution. Have you, in fact, had any inkling of that particular issue? Have you thought at all about that issue? Do you think that that's an issue that should be addressed?
I do. I don't know that in the particular circumstances of this case, that's something that the court is going to address, because you have to narrowly focus your issues in order to get the court to take the case. I don't know if this is going to come up, but that privacy concern, I think is at the forefront of a lot of the minds of a lot of people that I talk to, and I know that's a growing concern, all over this Commonwealth. The people that I talk to, in this day and age, so much of what we do can potentially be put out there into the public. As a prosecutor, I say often, this might sound counterintuitive to people, but I believe firmly that one of the most important considerations for me is the Fourth Amendment and the right for us to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures in our homes. I don't want the government in my business any more than anybody else does.
All right, I need to. I'm sorry. No, finish your statement. I'm sorry.
I'm a firm believer in the warrant requirement, probable cause. Make me as a prosecutor do my job. If I want that information, I need probable cause, and I need that to be approved by a neutral and detached magistrate. Then I deserve to have that information. But if I can't articulate that, people's private information shouldn't be out there.
All right, I have a number of other questions to deal with, including death penalty in Pennsylvania, the Sandusky case. That's going to be a biggie. And a couple of other issues. We're talking with the Republican candidate for Attorney General of Pennsylvania. He's unopposed in this upcoming primary, and he'll be facing one of two Democrats who are vying for their party's nomination in this upcoming primary election. They are Patrick Murphy of Bucks County, or former Assistant District Attorney Kathleen Kane. Patrick Murphy, by the way, is a former congressman, just so you know. And David Freed is currently the Cumberland County, Pennsylvania District Attorney. And he is the Republican candidate for Attorney General. He will be on the ballot come November because he is unopposed in this primary. More coming up on KDKA. Okay, we're talking about the office of the Pennsylvania State Attorney General, and it is up for re-election, or for election, I should say, not re-election, because the current holder is not going to run. David Freed is a Republican, the only Republican candidate in the primary coming up for State Attorney General, and he is a prosecutor currently. He's the Cumberland County District Attorney. That's just west of Harrisburg. And one of the issues that I want to discuss with you, and this is not a criticism of Tom Corbett, so please don't get defensive on this. What your fellow Republican in the previous Attorney General, the Jerry Sandusky case. Came to the attention of the State Attorney General's office, I believe, in 2009 or thereabouts. Ultimately, indictments were not handed down until 2011, so we went a couple of years while this is being investigated, and then we get an indictment after Governor Corbett was elected to the governor's office, and some people are being a little skeptical there, saying, well, they just kept this under wraps. This should never have taken this long to investigate. So my question to you is, you're a prosecutor. You've probably had sex abuse cases. You've probably had child molestation cases come before your office in Cumberland County. Should it really take 2 years to investigate something like this and bring some charges?
Well, I think it's an excellent question. What I know, based on my experience as a prosecutor, is that you can't impute any sort of artificial timetable onto an investigation. Now, once we file a charge, obviously there's rules in play about how quickly a case has to move. But as far as an investigation goes, I'm having a little trouble. I understand the questions people have. Mike, don't get me wrong. I've been a little troubled in the political realm by sort of the politicization of the case and the focus of it away from trying to get justice for these victims. But I understand why people have questions. And what I've been saying, and I believe this with all my heart, and it's based on my experience, is that the only person who knows when the evidence is sufficient and ready to file and to have the best chance for conviction is the prosecutor handling the case. Now, of course, we can always file a charge based on probable cause, one person's word against another. These cases are the most difficult cases often that you can try, and one person's word with no corroboration, no physical evidence, that might be enough to file a charge, but it certainly isn't enough to win. So, I think it's very difficult from outside to judge when was the right time. Now, and in a case like this high profile, to build it, I know there's been questions about building it through a grand jury. I've always had an investigating grand jury in my county. It's an incredibly valuable tool. I like to build cases through grand juries. So you can't artificially decide, yes, we have to file now, or no, we don't. And again, until we see all the grand jury transcripts, all the police reports, it's very difficult to question the timing. But I do understand that question.
Well, okay, so all right, because the skeptics, the critics, some people with a suspicious mind, including me, have to consider were politics playing a role in this, because Governor Corbett wanted to, now Governor Corbett wanted to run for governor. Having something like this blow up in the midst of that, or just before that, could be a problem from a political standpoint. Not necessarily, but could be. So maybe that was one of the considerations, to keep the wraps on this until such time as everybody's safely ensconced in their various positions, and now we can bring the charges. Meantime, there could be other children who were molested in the meantime.
Yeah, that's always the concern with any lengthy investigation like this. Is when do you have enough evidence? Is anybody else in danger? Those are things that every prosecutor thinks about. Now, certainly, I'm not in the AG's office. I wasn't in anybody's head as this went on. I know the governor for a long time as a prosecutor to be an honorable guy. We prosecutors make decisions based on the evidence and the facts in the case. And, Mike, we're going to get criticized one way or the other. You don't have enough. You waited too long. As a prosecutor, you just have to get used to that and do the right thing for the right reason. That's what I've done throughout my career. And so, believe me, I understand the questions. I understand your skepticism. But I know as a prosecutor, you have to make that decision when you know it's the right time. Remember, we don't get a second bite at the apple.
All right, I understand. With regard to the Sandusky case, since we're in this vein right now, it just occurs to me to ask this. Ray Griecar was the DA up in Center County back in whatever year it was, 1998, when the first inkling came, and there was an investigation done by the police, campus police, and there was some involvement from the DA's office of allegations against Sandusky. Griecar, for whatever reason, nobody seems to know why, decided that he was not going to file charges against Jerry Sandusky. The whole thing ends up shelved away, shoved under a rug someplace, and then until 2002, and it crops up again, as we learn in the grand jury indictment. But finally, charges, a real investigation begins in 2009, ultimately coming to the charges in 2011. Meanwhile, Ray Griecar disappears off the face of the earth. If you were elected Attorney General in November, sworn in January of next year, can you pledge to me that you will reopen the issue of what happened to Ray Griecar, and is there any connection to the Sandusky case?
Well, if there was a reason to do that, that would certainly be something for the Attorney General to look into. Now, if you remember back, I don't know how closely you followed this, Mike, but there was a dispute. There were some local DAs criticizing the Attorney General for not doing more as it related to the Griecar case. Now, again, that's a case that has to be referred to the Attorney General's office.
You can't just say, you know what, this Sandusky case stinks to high heaven. Now we've learned in the meantime that back in 1998 there were a couple of psychologists that took a look at this guy. One of them said he is a pervert. He shows every signs of being a pervert, and that was shuffled away someplace. and then Greek card disappears. I mean, isn't that basis enough for the Attorney General to say, you know what, we're going to put some investigators on this, reopen it. Maybe we can't find anything, but maybe there is something there, and maybe we can do something about that. Don't you think? Wouldn't that be in your purview to do that?
If it was proper to do under the Commonwealth Attorneys Act, it might be. As it relates to Sandusky case, you have to understand the jurisdiction of the AG's office is limited by that act. I'd want to know, before I would make any pledge, Mike, I'd want to know what's the status of the investigation into Ray's disappearance. It's still active.
There is no status. Nobody's looking into it, as far as I know.
Well, no. I don't know if that's correct. I don't know. I know the police were called in. I know that Belfont was still looking into it, which is Ray's hometown. So I'd want to know the status of it before I'd make any pledge along those lines.
All right. I'm almost out of time in this segment. I know we had you for the two segments. Can we move... Can we move something just for a second? Because I want to ask one more question here.
Sure.
We've got, I don't know how, we're talking to David Freed. He's a Republican. He's a current district attorney in Cumberland County. He's running for the Attorney General of Pennsylvania. He's unopposed in the Republican primary. We got, I've lost count now, but I think it's a couple hundred people sitting on death row in Pennsylvania. Nobody's been executed since I can't remember when. We have basically do not have a death penalty here. Is there anything the district, first of all, I assume, I'm going to assume that you favor the death penalty. You support the death penalty.
You're correct.
Okay. So is there anything the Attorney General can do to get these appeals, get through these appeals and move on and actually mete out the punishment that juries have imposed in this state?
Yeah, yes. The Attorney General has to be a leader. Now, have me back someday so we can talk just about this issue, because we need more time. I got a couple minutes here because we're going to move some stuff here because I got a couple minutes here before the news headlines. Okay. It's a very complicated issue. I'm battling right now in one of the cases that we have on death row from my county. It's a very complicated issue with the interplay between the state and the federal court. We've proposed some legislative fixes in Pennsylvania. When I say we, I mean the Pennsylvania DA's Association and law enforcement. The Attorney General has to be a leader not only on the legislative end to try to move these cases along, but also on the advocacy end, working with all the prosecutors all over the state. The simple fact is, all these cases end up with the Federal Defenders Association of the Philadelphia Public Defender's Office. They're funded to the tune of about $13 million from the federal government, much more than any particular AG's level or county that they're fighting. And they bounce these cases. They have a strategy to bounce the cases back and forth from federal to state court, and we're battling it constantly. The state Supreme Court, I'd urge you to look at a concurrence written by Chief Justice Castile in a case called Commonwealth versus Spots. It lays this out perfectly. The system is broken, and it's the bouncing of appeals from federal to state and back again. The Attorney General must lead on this issue because this de facto moratorium we have is ridiculous.
Well, when I look at other states like Texas and even Ohio and Florida, they don't seem to be having this ping pong effect. Why is that?
It's a function. It's a convergence of the federal courts that we have in Pennsylvania and this incredibly well-funded, well-thought-out strategy by the Federal Defenders Association has been able to bottle these cases up. I mean, like the only people that have been executed in this Commonwealth are volunteers, essentially, since we reinstituted the death penalty. There's a case out of Montgomery County where the prosecutor, before the case, went to the defense attorney and judge and said, I'm going to tell me what you need. I will give you everything you need. I want to see, because he knew it was probably going to be a capital case, I want to see if we can have a case that will ever stand up. And if it's the will of the voters and it's the law of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and prosecutors are doing the things they're supposed to do correctly, we should be able to execute people. Right. And it's this monumental battle, and the Attorney General can lead, and I understand those issues. I've been dealing with it every day.
All right, David, I got to stop there, but thank you for spending time with us, and we will talk again. David Freed is the Republican candidate for Pennsylvania Attorney General. Headlines now.